Hello. Well, we live in a time of artificially created controversies, all ginned up by the culture war right. And one of the hottest but most completely bogus controversies today is the fight over teaching critical race theory. I'm going to focus on the first word in that, teaching. Now, there has been and should be a lot said about the other three words, fight over critical race theory. Properly, there's been a lot of focus on these 3 points. One, that critical race theory is the topic of discussion in law schools, where I first ran across it, in graduate schools, maybe upper level political science or history courses at universities, but definitely not in high school or elementary school or middle school. That's ridiculous. That's absurd. Another topic that's often discussed. These right-wing culture warriors wildly misrepresent the various theses of critical race theory. I mean, completely misrepresent it. They're lying like rugs. Number three, what they really are against, and this is getting more and more obvious, is they're really against any discussion of race, racism, slavery, Jim Crow, or basically about half of American history. They're just they're just trying to flush everything down the memory hole, just like Big Brother in 1984. Rewrite history overnight. All these points are very worth making. But my point is actually about the word that's rarely discussed, the first word used, teaching. The right uses that word in a very different way than those of us actively engaged in education tend to use it. And that difference is very illuminating. It shows the authoritarian mindset in full flower. To the authoritarian, teaching means indoctrination. It means brainwashing. It means instilling unquestioned and unquestionable dogma provided by authority. The authoritarian right cannot see any other kind of teaching and does not find it conceivable to think of any other kind of teaching. To the authoritarian right, everything is dogma. All that matters is who's shoving it down your throat. It's all authority all the time. Let's just make sure the right people are doing the indoctrination. Their view is school is for training students to be perfect followers of the received doctrines of authority. But that isn't teaching. That has nothing to do with education. Indoctrination and brainwashing are not education. Teaching is opening minds, not closing them. Teaching is presenting ideas for consideration and cultivating the skills that allow students to think critically and carefully and creatively for themselves. This is frustrating on the obvious level that our country's history is in the process of being erased. But if you're in education, it's frustrating on another more subtle level because it reflects not only the mindset of the authoritarian right, but all too much the mindset of university managers these days. I once heard a university administrator in a meeting with college faculty refer to the university's customers. And that person did not even mean students, which would be bad enough. That person meant the businesses the students will one day work at, their future employer. That's horrifying. The student is just a product, and a product needs to be shaped, molded, trained, and indoctrinated. You want to have a good little worker? Box their mind in, to doing the job. Don't worry about creating the opportunity to grow as a human being. Just make sure they know how to tick the right boxes in that cubicle a few years down the road. Teaching is growing. Please don't let it stop meaning that. Keep your mind growing, no matter who's trying to stop it.